Loyalty, everyone swears by it, but almost no one truly understands it. It's one of those words people toss around like it costs nothing, yet in truth, it's the most expensive currency a man can ever trade. You see, loyalty isn't proven in peace, it's revealed in chaos. When everything's burning down, when alliances start to crumble, when the mask of civility falls away, that's when you see who's real. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He didn't see loyalty as some noble virtue, but as a tool, something that could be tested, manipulated, or broken, depending on who held the power. But here's the thing most people never realize. Loyalty isn't just about others, it's also a mirror. It reflects what you attract, what you tolerate, and what you fail to see. You can't demand loyalty from snakes and expect them not to bite. You can't expect truth from those who are loyal only to their own gain. If you don't learn how to test loyalty the Machiavellian way, quietly, intelligently, without ever revealing your hand, you'll end up surrounded by people who smile when you rise and sharpen their knives when you turn your back. So let's strip away the illusions. Let's talk about the kind of loyalty that endures, the kind that can't be faked. Because in a world driven by self-interest, finding someone who's real is rarer than gold. And the only way to know who's real is to test them. Not with words, but with strategy. Not with trust, but with pressure. Here's the first truth Machiavelli would teach you. Loyalty is not proven by agreement, it's proven by resistance. Most people confuse obedience with loyalty. They think someone who agrees with them, flatters them, or follows their lead without question must be loyal. But that's not loyalty. That's convenience. That's someone who mirrors your ego to stay close to your power. A truly loyal person isn't afraid to challenge you, because their allegiance isn't built on fear, it's built on respect. So test this. Say something wrong, make a flawed decision, or express an unpopular idea. Watch who stays silent. Watch who nods along to avoid conflict. Those people aren't loyal to you, they're loyal to their comfort. The one who looks you in the eye and tells you the truth you didn't want to hear, that's the one who's real. That's your mirror, your ally, your test passed. The second Machiavellian test, the loyalty of silence. It's easy for people to act loyal when they're standing beside you. But what happens when you're not in the room? When your name comes up and you're not there to defend yourself? That's where the real test begins. You see, betrayal doesn't always start with action, it starts with silence. The disloyal never stab you first. They just let the knife fall when someone else throws it. So watch how people talk about others in front of you. The gossipers, the ones who casually expose secrets or mock those they once praised, they're rehearsing how they'll talk about you one day. The truly loyal, they protect what's absent. They defend what's not even theirs to defend. And you'll never hear about it because real loyalty is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't perform. It simply guards what matters, even when no one's watching. But to see that, you have to stop listening to what people say about loyalty and start observing how they behave when there's no reward attached. That's where the third test begins, the loyalty of loss. Machiavelli wrote that men are quicker to forget the death of a father than the loss of a fortune. He was right. If you want to know who's loyal, take away what benefits them. Remove their comfort, their advantage, their opportunity. Then watch. When you can no longer give, who still stays. When your light fades, who doesn't move toward another flame. That's loyalty. Most people are loyal only as long as it's profitable, emotionally, socially, financially. But the rare few remain even when standing beside you costs them something. They absorb the fire meant for you, not because they expect a reward, but because they made a silent promise to stand their ground. That's the kind of person you can build empires. The rest, they're just visitors, temporary allies wearing permanent smiles. The fourth test is where most people fail, the loyalty of envy. This one's subtle, because it doesn't show itself when you're struggling. It appears when you start to rise. Everyone loves the version of you that makes them feel superior or safe. But start succeeding, start growing beyond the image they had of you, and suddenly their loyalty fractures. You'll notice it in small shifts, a backhanded compliment, a faint pause before they congratulate you, an invisible wall that forms between your victory and their pride. Here's the brutal truth. People who can't celebrate your rise without feeling smaller are not loyal. They're competitors disguised as friends. Machiavelli warned rulers to beware of those who flatter too easily, for behind every false admirer lies the seed of envy. The loyal will push you forward even when it means staying in your shadow. The envious will pull you down just to feel tall again. And here's the most dangerous part. Envy rarely attacks directly. It waits. It listens. It finds your weak points. And one day it moves quietly, strategically, at the moment when you least expect it. That's why the most dangerous enemies often start as admirers, and the only protection you have is awareness. The moment you see envy flicker in someone's eyes, understand, loyalty has already died there. And then there's the final test, the loyalty of power. Give someone a small taste of authority, a fraction of influence, and you'll see their true character. Power doesn't corrupt people, it reveals them. The one who was humble under you may become cruel above you. The one who seemed loyal when they needed your help may turn arrogant the moment they no longer do. Machiavelli wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." Meaning, when power shifts, so does loyalty, unless it was genuine from the start. So test this. Delegate something valuable. Trust someone with real responsibility. Then observe what they do when your back is turned. Do they honor the position or exploit it? Do they strengthen your foundation or start building their own tower beside it? If they remain steady, if they lied with the same restraint and respect they showed as a subordinate, that's rare. That's loyalty proven in its purest form, not loyalty to you, but to principle, to purpose, to something higher than self-interest. That's the moment you'll understand Machiavelli's true genius. He never told you to trust no one. He told you to trust intelligently, to test before you believe, to watch the invisible threads of behavior that reveal the soul beneath the mask. Because loyalty, in the end, is not declared, it's demonstrated. The tragedy is that most people never test loyalty until it's too late. They wait until the betrayal has already unfolded, until the damage is done, until the knife has already entered. By then, it's not a lesson, it's a scar. But the wise learn to see the fracture before it splits. They pay attention to small things, the tone of a voice, the rhythm of a response, the hesitation before a promise. Because loyalty doesn't disappear all at once, it erodes quietly like a shoreline under the tide. You can feel it if you're attuned, a sudden distance, a softer tone, a different kind of silence. Most people ignore it. They call it overthinking, but it's not paranoia when patterns speak. Machiavelli's mind was wired for this kind of observation. He believed power wasn't just about control, it was about awareness. The one who sees the truth first controls the game. Here's something most people miss. Betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from those who had enough access to hurt you. You open the door, you hand them the key, you trust their smile, and one day that smile carries poison. That's why emotional intelligence is a survival skill, not a luxury. It's not about being kind or agreeable. It's about reading the motives behind every gesture, every favor, every word that sounds too good. Ask yourself, why are they loyal? What's in it for them? Because there's always something. It might be power, proximity, validation, or even the illusion of safety. People don't follow you because they believe in you. They follow you because you serve something inside them. And the moment that need changes, so does their allegiance. That's the human condition, fluid, self-preserving, and beautifully treacherous. But don't let that make you bitter. The point isn't to lose faith in people, it's to understand them, to see them without illusions, and to choose your circle with precision. Machiavelli would tell you this: you can't control loyalty, but you can control access. Let people show you who they are without giving them the chance to destroy you. Set traps, not out of malice, but out of necessity. Give them opportunities to reveal their truth, and then step back. The real ones will strengthen your walls, the false ones will try to find the cracks. Both are useful. One shows you who to trust, the other shows you where to fortify. Think about your own history. The moments you were betrayed, they weren't random. They were predictable if you looked closely enough. Maybe there was a moment when your intuition whispered something you didn't want to hear. Maybe you ignored it because confronting the truth would have meant letting go of someone you loved, someone you needed, someone you thought was irreplaceable. That's how betrayal happens, not through deceit, but through denial. Every betrayal you've endured was a lesson you already saw coming. The mistake wasn't blindness, it was disbelief. You didn't want to believe that someone could change, that affection could rot into envy, that promises could turn to smoke. But power, success, and survival all demand one thing: the courage to see people as they are, not as you wish them to be. Loyalty, when it's real, doesn't need to be managed. It's consistent. It doesn't ask for attention. It doesn't fluctuate with convenience. It doesn't require validation. It simply is. It's the friend who doesn't announce their support, they just show up. The partner who doesn't need to be begged for honesty, they offer it. The ally who stands behind you even when no one's watching, because that's who they are, not who they pretend to be. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes, the test of loyalty reveals that the disloyal person is you. We demand loyalty we haven't earned. We expect others to stay when we ourselves would have left. We want people to fight for us while we quietly calculate our exits. Loyalty isn't one-sided. It's a contract of integrity, not perfection, but intention. So before you test others, test yourself. Ask, do I stand by the people who have stood by me? Do I stay consistent when convenience fades? Or do I change colors when the wind shifts? Machiavelli wrote, "It is double pleasure to deceive the deceiver." But what he really meant was that manipulation only works on those who manipulate themselves first. If you lie to yourself about who you are and what you value, the world will lie to you right back. Self-deception invites betrayal. Self-awareness prevents it. The rarest kind of power is not control over others, it's control over your own attachments, because attachment clouds judgment. The moment you need someone to be loyal, you lose your leverage. You start excusing red flags, ignoring inconsistencies, rationalizing small betrayals. But the Machiavellian mind doesn't attach, it observes. It gives without dependence. It trusts with boundaries. It replaces emotion with evidence. Watch people under pressure, not when they're calm, not when life is easy, but when something is at stake. Do they stay honest or do they twist? Do they protect you or themselves? That's when the truth emerges. Pressure reveals everything. And if you watch closely, you'll see patterns that no words can hide. Most people don't realize this, but loyalty is a spectrum, not a switch. It's not that someone's either loyal or not. It's how far their loyalty extends before it bends. For some, loyalty ends at inconvenience. For others, it ends at danger. But for the rare few, the ones who carry integrity in their bones, loyalty doesn't end. It transcends. It becomes a part of who they are, not what they do. These people don't just stand beside you, they anchor you. And they're not loud. They don't make grand promises. They prove it quietly through small acts, through consistency, through truth, through presence. You don't have to ask them for proof. Their actions are the proof. But to find them, you have to clear the noise. Because loyalty isn't found in crowds, it's found in silence. It's found in the people who stay when the crowd disperses, in the ones who believe when the world doubts, in the ones who never once have to say, "Trust me," because they've never given you a reason not to. And yet, this is where most people fail. They confuse chemistry with character. They mistake comfort for connection. They let charm blind them to truth. The disloyal often look the most loyal because they know the performance. They know how to mimic sincerity, how to mirror your values until you feel safe. That's why you must never confuse intensity for loyalty. The loudest devotion often hides the quietest betrayal, so don't be fooled by passion. Look for patience. Don't be seduced by promises. Look for patterns. Don't listen to what people swear in comfort. Observe what they do under pressure, because loyalty is a rhythm. It's not declared once, it's repeated in silence over time without applause. That's the Machiavellian truth about loyalty. It's not about faith, it's about proof. And proof takes time. You don't test loyalty by asking people to swear it, you test it by giving them opportunities to betray it. You let them choose freely without pressure, and you take note of which way they turn. You don't punish betrayal, you record it. You don't expose disloyalty, you outgrow it. That's how the strong survive, not through confrontation, but through quiet discernment. You don't need revenge on the disloyal. Their punishment is natural because betrayal carries its own decay. Those who betray once will betray again. It becomes a pattern, a habit, an infection of the soul. And sooner or later, the same lack of loyalty they showed to you will be shown to them. Machiavelli understood that you never need to destroy your enemies. You only need to give them enough power to destroy themselves. That's the final mastery, when you reach a place where loyalty isn't demanded, but deserved. When your presence alone filters the genuine from the false. When you've seen enough masks fall that you no longer chase words, you simply watch. And in that silence, truth reveals itself. There's a kind of power that comes when you no longer beg for loyalty, when you simply observe who gives it without being asked. That's when your perception sharpens, when your intuition becomes your shield. Because once you've been betrayed and survived it, you begin to see human nature for what it truly is. Not good, not evil, just self-interest. The Machiavellian doesn't hate this about people. He accepts it. He studies it. He uses it. Loyalty to him isn't a moral virtue, it's a strategic resource. It's a living thing that must be earned, tested, and maintained through balance. Too much trust and you invite deceit. Too much suspicion and you destroy loyalty before it can form. So the goal isn't to become cynical, it's to become calibrated, to see clearly without emotion blurring the view. The ones who last, the rulers, the leaders, the survivors, they understand this balance. They know that loyalty isn't sustained by affection, but by alignment. People remain loyal as long as your vision serves theirs, as long as your direction doesn't threaten their desires. The moment those paths diverge, loyalty begins to fade. That's why smart leaders never rely on emotion to bind others to them. They build systems of loyalty, contracts, incentives, shared enemies, common goals. They make betrayal costly. That's the Machiavellian genius, turning loyalty from a feeling into a structure, making it dangerous to betray you, not through violence or threats, but through consequence, through intelligence, through understanding the mechanics of human motivation. Think about it, even the most faithful companion has limits. But if loyalty becomes logical, if standing with you benefits them more than leaving you, then their loyalty becomes predictable. That's not manipulation, that's foresight. That's what Machiavelli meant when he said, "Men are kept honest by necessity, not by choice." So if you want to know who's real, give people a reason to stay, but make sure it's not dependency. Dependency creates parasites. Shared purpose creates allies. The difference is subtle but everything. Look closely at those around you. Some people stay close because they fear losing what you give them. That's not loyalty, that's survival. Others stay close because your success reflects theirs. That's not loyalty either, that's vanity. But the rare ones, the truly rare ones, they stay because they believe in something that exists beyond both of you. They stay because they recognize truth, and truth is the only loyalty that never decays. Here's what most people get wrong about loyalty. It's not about staying, it's about staying honest. A person who leaves you truthfully is more loyal than one who stays and deceives you. There's a form of betrayal that hides behind smiles and promises. It doesn't stab you, it drains you quietly over time. It shows up as delayed responses, vague words, half-hearted support. And when you finally see it for what it is, it's not rage you feel, it's exhaustion. That's the moment you wake up. That's the moment you stop demanding loyalty from anyone, because you realize loyalty isn't something you chase. It's something you attract by embodying it. When you stand in your own truth, when you hold yourself to a code that can't be bought, the disloyal naturally fall away. They can't breathe in your atmosphere. They need drama, confusion, emotional leverage. But when your presence is built on clarity and self-respect, they have nowhere to hide. Their masks melt under the heat of your consistency. And here's where the transformation begins, when you stop needing people to stay and start valuing the lesson they leave behind. Every betrayal burns, but every burn hardens your vision. You start to see through tone, posture, hesitation. You learn to detect the tremor behind a compliment, the envy hidden behind curiosity. You become immune to charm, not because you're cold, but because you've been scorched enough times to recognize the fire. That's the paradox of loyalty. You only learn it through disloyalty. You only value what's real once you've been broken by what's fake. And once that awakening happens, you move differently. You speak less. You give slower. You study people before you invite them close. Machiavelli would call this the education of power. The process of learning the language of human behavior, the tells, the patterns, the unspoken motive. Once you learn it, you can walk through any room and see exactly who's who. The opportunist, the loyalist, the snake in disguise, the coward pretending to be kind. It's all there, hidden in gestures most people overlook. Watch how people act when no one's watching them. That's their truth. Watch how they treat those who can do nothing for them. That's their character. Watch how they behave after success. That's their loyalty revealed. Power doesn't change people, it unmasks them. And so does loss. When you have nothing to offer, you see who remains. When you lose your power, your charm, your usefulness, that's when loyalty's mask either holds or falls apart. Most won't survive that test. Most will drift away as if your worth evaporated the moment your crown slipped. But that's the beauty of the fall it filtered. It removes illusion. It leaves only the real one standing beside you, unshaken, untempted, unbought. Those few are your foundation, not your followers, not your fans, your circle. The quiet ones who don't need validation because they already know their value. They don't compete, they don't compare. They protect, they build, they stabilize. If you find even one person like that, hold them close, but don't worship them. Test them still, because even loyalty can decay if it's never renewed. Respect must be reciprocated. Trust must be maintained. The game of loyalty never ends, it just deepens. That's the hidden law of power. You can't demand what you don't embody. If you want real loyalty, you have to be the example. You have to live with such consistency that others either rise to your standard or fall away. The Machiavellian doesn't inspire loyalty through emotion. He commands it through reliability. People trust him not because he promises, but because his actions never contradict his words. And if you want to know who's truly loyal, give them the freedom to walk away. Don't trap them with fear or obligation. Don't guilt them into staying, because real loyalty doesn't come from control, it comes from choice. When someone could leave, but doesn't, that's when you found the truth. When you start living this way, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing loyalty altogether. You stop trying to prove yourself, explain yourself, or defend your place in anyone's life. You simply stand still and watch who stands with you. That's what Machiavelli understood about power. That's what every strong mind eventually learns. When you move with clarity, loyalty reveals itself naturally. The real don't need convincing. The fake don't need confronting. The game plays itself. So ask yourself, who would stay if everything you gave was gone? Who would speak your name with the same conviction if you lost the status, the money, the light? Who would defend you when there's no benefit, when it's inconvenient, when it costs them something? That's your answer. That's your circle. And once you see it clearly, once you strip the illusion from your connection, a calm enters you, a strength that no betrayal can touch. Because you've seen the game for what it is and you no longer play blind. You don't cling, you don't chase, you don't test out of paranoia, you test out of peace. You test because you understand that loyalty isn't about control, it's about truth. And truth doesn't fear exposure, it only fears illusion. The deeper you go into understanding loyalty, the more you realize it was never really about others. It was always about you, about your discernment, your boundaries, your hunger for truth. Every betrayal, every disappointment, every fracture of trust, they weren't punishments, they were mirrors. They were showing you what you refused to see about yourself. Maybe you trusted too fast because you craved connection. Maybe you gave too much because you feared being alone. Maybe you ignored the signs because you wanted to believe someone was better than they were. And that's the cruel beauty of human nature. We don't just betray others, we betray ourselves first. You think you're protecting others from your suspicion, but really you're protecting your illusion from their truth. Because once you see people for who they are, you can't go back, you can't unsee it. And seeing clearly means letting go. That's the quiet brutality of awareness. It costs you comfort. The more you understand loyalty, the lonelier the path becomes. Because the more genuine you become, the fewer people can stand next to you without feeling exposed. But here's the paradox. When you stop seeking loyalty out of fear, you start attracting loyalty out of strength. When you no longer beg to be understood, when you stop performing for approval, when you operate from stillness rather than need, you start commanding a different kind of energy. The loyal find you naturally. The disloyal sense your clarity and drift away, like shadows shrinking under light. Machiavelli once said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." Meaning, the wise test loyalty before the crisis, not after. They don't wait for betrayal, they anticipate. They build fortresses not of stone, but of awareness. They surround themselves with those who have proven, not promised. They understand that prevention is stronger than reaction. You don't need to build walls around your heart, you just need gates. Gates with locks that open only to those who have earned entry through consistency, not charm. Let people reveal themselves slowly. Let time do the talking. Because time is the great equalizer, it dissolves pretense. It forces masks to slip. And when you live long enough with that understanding, something inside you changes. You stop fearing betrayal because it no longer surprises you. You see it as part of the human pattern, inevitable, instructive, and sometimes even necessary. Without it, you'd never refine your vision. Without it, you'd never learn to protect your peace. The ones who hurt you weren't just lessons, they were teachers of discernment. They showed you the cost of blindness. They burned away your naivety, leaving behind a sharper kind of wisdom. The kind that doesn't need revenge, doesn't need confrontation, doesn't even need closure. Just silence, calm, cutting silence. Because once you understand how people reveal their loyalty, you stop needing to expose them. You already know who they are, and knowing is enough. There's an elegance in that kind of detachment, the way you stop reacting, stop explaining, stop proving. The disloyal feed on chaos, they need your reaction to validate their betrayal. But when you respond with nothing, when you keep your composure, you rob them of power. You reclaim control. You remind them that loyalty is not something they can give or take. It's something you define by the way you move. And that's where real power begins. When your energy becomes so stable that betrayal doesn't shatter you, it clarifies you. Machiavelli knew that power and loyalty were twins, born of the same blood, but often at odds. Power demands loyalty, but it also tempts betrayal. The moment you rise, you create envy. The moment you lead, you create ambition in those who follow you. That's the natural law of human behavior. The wise don't fight it, they design around it. They reward loyalty but never depend on it. They plan for betrayal before it happens, not with paranoia but precision. They make loyalty practical, not emotional. They understand that every person has a price, and that price isn't always money. Sometimes it's validation, sometimes it's power, sometimes it's peace. Once you learn what people truly value, you can predict their loyalty. And when you can predict loyalty, betrayal loses its element of surprise. But let's go deeper. Beyond politics, beyond manipulation, beyond the strategy, there's something more. There's a kind of loyalty that transcends advantage. It doesn't come from fear or benefit. It comes from resonance, a shared code between souls who recognize truth in each other. It's rare, it's quiet, and it's not something you can force. It happens when integrity meets integrity. When two people, or even a small group, see that their values align so deeply that betrayal would mean betraying themselves. That kind of loyalty, you can't buy it, you can't command it, you can't replicate it, you can only be it. And that's what all of this leads to. The ultimate Machiavellian test isn't about others, it's about you. The truest test of loyalty is how loyal you remain to your own principles when no one is watching. Do you keep your word when it's no longer convenient? Do you honor your values when no one's applauding? Do you stay honest when dishonesty could make things easier? Because if your loyalty to yourself is weak, every other loyalty you build will collapse. You can't attract integrity while living in contradiction. You can't demand truth while lying to yourself. You can't test others while avoiding your own test. Machiavelli didn't just study human nature, he studied the human condition. He knew that loyalty begins with the self. That's why he said, "He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command." And the first person you must command is you. Command your emotions, command your reactions, command your expectations, because loyalty without discipline is just attachment. And attachment will always betray you first. When you master that, when you become loyal to your own truth, no matter the cost, you stop fearing betrayal altogether. You become unshakable. You stop losing sleep over who stayed or left, who whispered or lied. You realize that everyone plays their part, some as lessons, others as legacies. And you become something else entirely, a force that no deceit can touch, a presence that doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't bend, because your loyalty is no longer external. It's internal, it's a state of being. You start moving through life differently. You listen more, you speak less. You measure people by patterns, not promises. You stop trying to fix disloyal people. You simply step back and let time finish what you already know. You watch their own behavior dismantle their illusion. You stay still, calm, collected, because you understand that the truth always reveals itself. It always does. That's the quiet power of the Machiavellian mind. It doesn't seek validation, it seeks understanding. It doesn't react to betrayal, it learns from it. It doesn't demand loyalty, it inspires it. And through that mastery, you rise above the noise, beyond manipulation, beyond weakness, beyond naivete. In the end, you realize that loyalty is not about who walks beside you. It's about who remains when everything else falls apart, who doesn't flinch when you're no longer useful, who doesn't rewrite history when the tide turns. Those are the ones who have passed every test without even knowing they were being tested. And when you find them, those rare, steady souls who carry loyalty like a quiet oath, protect them. Not with fear, but with respect. Not with control, but with recognition. Let them know they are seen, not used. Valued, not owned. Because loyalty given freely is the most dangerous weapon in the world and the most sacred bond. But never forget, the first and last loyalty must always be to yourself, to your purpose, to your truth. Because when that foundation is unbreakable, no betrayal can truly wound you. It may sting, it may scar, but it cannot shake what is rooted in self-respect. So in the end, this isn't just a guide to spotting the loyal and the false. It's a mirror. It's a challenge. It's an awakening. To stop living in illusion. To see people clearly. To trust with eyes open. Because life will test you. People will test you. Power will tempt you. And in those moments when everything shifts, the only question that matters, the one Machiavelli would whisper in your ear, is this: are you loyal to the truth, even when it hurts? Because if you are, then no betrayal can break you. No mask can deceive you. No loss can define you. You've passed the final test. You've learned to see. You've learned to stand alone. And that, in the end, is the only loyalty that lasts forever.